Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the Friday show of our esports news segment. We have a lot of breaking stories in today's episode, and as always, let's get into it. And first off, in CSGO news, this past week we've had so many roster changes, especially in the past 24 hours. We'll go over the most important ones as of today, and of course, as of last night, we have announced, of course, Movistar's newest roster that will be Mixwell, and they had quite the introduction to him being signed to the roster. That will be Movistar, an all-Spanish roster as well. Mixwell to be their star player, but here is the way they actually introduced him on screen. You guys can see not many other pro players or any team out there really does this kind of introduction. You can see the hype around this guy to represent a Spanish organization from his home country. And it's going to be very cool to see how they do in the future, despite every other team out there, or a lot of the top teams preparing for the major and being very busy. We'll see how this roster does in the future, but there were so many other changes out there. Another one was actually Flipside Tactics changing over half of their roster. It was two former members. That's going to be World Edit as well as Lollipop. Lollipop for that team never went to a single LAN event, but was actually very well known for his online statistics. Both those players will be off the team going forward, as well as one of their former members, Blade, their former IGL as well, will actually be off that roster and will continue as their coach. So Flipside now changing over half their roster wasn't quite surprising news. So also some smaller changes out there. We actually have QBF, who lost their former roster to Windstrike. The Windstrike roster will be at our major as well, but this former QBF team actually had no roster for about a month or several months now, and they've now announced their full new roster as well on screen. And on top of that, we also had a Vanguard, one of those many teams who failed to qualify for the major and seemingly are making these changes because of that. They've actually replaced Dimasic with one of former Gamut members, stand-in or trial members. That's actually Fitch. And very lastly as well, for male CSGO roster changes out there, we did have a big one, and that's the announcement of Tempo Storm's two newest players who will be a stand-in or kind of a trial period right now for Star Series Season 6 qualifier, and that will be, of course, RPK and Happy, former Envious guys who've actually played with these guys in the past throughout the past month or so, and they will be a part of the Tempo Storm roster going forward. And of course, that Tempo Storm roster who formerly featured Lowell and Chetty. Lowell, one of those guys who actually be joining Mixwell for the Movistar roster. So a ton of roster changes happening in the past week or so, and especially in the past 2 days. But also, in some female news out there, we had a huge signing. It's going to be to Besiktar, actually a Turkish football club out there, have officially signed the former female Rez team, and that's actually on team on screen for all of you. Juliana, Vilga, other players in that team as well, very well known. On top of that, Zaz, very well known for their past 2016, 2017 performances, but also kind of very surprising news, this signing, because this female roster has actually not played too much throughout 2018 as well as throughout late 2017, but it's a pretty big signing for them. So we're going to see where they actually compete next. And again, one of probably your top female rosters out there have now been signed to a Turkish football club, and pretty big news out there. Now to close it out as well, of course, we have our Face It Major September. We have now finalized two more teams who will be going there, and they will be kind of as expected, as we talked about in last episode. It will be both Tyloo and Renegades, looking very dominant throughout the entire minor, and actually they played this morning as well. We actually had the minor grand finals, and it was Tyloo and Renegades facing off. And Renegades looking very dominant as well. They sweep Tyloo, but both these teams, by far and away, probably your best Asian teams, and they will be both going to the major qualifiers, and that was in CSGO news. And for Dota 2 news, as of course we await still the release of Immortal 3 Treasure out there. Rumors spreading as to what exactly that Immortal 3 Treasure will include. We do have the bot AI team returning. If you guys remember many months ago, earlier this summer, it was the bot AI team facing off against the dev team over there, so not really professional Dota 2 players. And coming soon within a few weeks, we will have another bot AI match, and this time a bit differently. They've actually finally changed some restrictions out there. There will be wards, there will be Roshan, as well as on top of that, most importantly, no longer will this professional team, kind of a few ex-professionals on there, the roster they'll be playing against, the bot team they'll be playing against on screen as well, going to be actually no longer restricted champ pool. So it's going to be cool to see. No longer will the team here, the pro team playing these bot AI players, actually have to mirror their champions or their heroes, which is a pretty big restriction. When they first played the dev team, it was actually just 5 heroes it was restricted to, and that hero pool has now been expanded to 18. So some really cool restrictions now being alleviated from this. I still think the bot AI team is only going to get stronger and stronger. And for all of you guys who are curious about the future of this bot AI, this actually will happen on August 5th, just short of our TI 2018. And on top of that, though, after TI does conclude, we're going to have the bot AI team. These 5 bots come back and actually play a real professional team, and we'll see just how good they get. Of course, when they first played the development team, they were kind of in their first few thousand games, and now they've been getting better and better. They've been scaling, and they're going to play, of course, this kind of semi-professional team. And then come late August, after the TI, they'll be playing actual professional Dota 2 teams. But by then, very unfortunately, of course, we'll have probably finally some more restrictions alleviated, maybe a wider hero pool as well as some other restrictions finally off these pro players. But by the time they play them, these bots are going to be so good and so scaled, I just can't see it going in their way. But what do you guys think about that? The bot AI team is back, and they're looking probably stronger than ever, but we'll find out August just how good the bots are. And a little bit of Fortnite drama out there around the FaZe Clan controversy. Now, if you guys don't know about this, we've had a few FaZe Clan members complain over the past few weeks about some recent tournaments, as well as that some, I guess you could say, some further in the past tournaments as well, where apparently FaZe Clan members have been not really receiving invites from Epic Games. Now, this actually comes from 3 main members, Cloaksy, Tfue, as well as Jalmak, have been actually talking about this, releasing several clips about this, which I'll play for you guys right now.
You guys will get more information on it soon, but pretty much there's going to be tournaments. Tournaments are starting to happen online with Epic. And, you know, FaZe Clan didn't get invited for some reason. I think, like, most pro teams with an org got invited, but FaZe.
How do you feel about FaZe not getting invited to tournaments? FaZe never gets invited to tournaments, okay? We gotta let some other teams win it every now and then, right, chat?
Was I invited to the 2v2 tourney? I didn't even know it was invite, to be honest. But no, I didn't get invited, of course not. What the fuck?
And it really does make a lot of people question out there whether the FaZe players are actually over-exaggerating this, or whether Epic Games devs actually kind of find it offensive when pro players out there actually bash their games in front of large audiences. Kind of notoriously, Tfue and Cloaksy are very honest about their opinions about the game, which you can respect on one level, and you can also understand on one level why developers or Epic Games maybe not like this. Would that mean they should restrict them from tournaments? Probably not. But also, we have yet to see really evidence of this. Now, I think in main reference, of course, in the near future, as well as we've only have 2 weeks into it so far, is the Fortnite Skirmish Series, just announced as well. It's going to be an 8-week event for $8 million in prize pool, which in itself is just ridiculous. Of course, we had Epic Games announce their $100 million prize pool throughout the entire year. This in itself, though, is outdoing many other esports out there in terms of prize pool, which is a ridiculous sum. Also, last week they had their first week of it. It was actually a duos event for $250,000, and unfortunately enough, it didn't really go that well. After only 4 matches, due to lag and connection issues, it was actually Epic Games who shut down the event. They posted winners afterwards, which was largely based off what they chose was actually kind of course, going to lead up to who actually won the event. Probably got kill based as well as other kind of terminology put in there. But the event did not go very well. But this week, probably going to bounce back. They also posted a long article about the struggles they had for that event. Week 2 will be a solos event for $500,000. Now, I think the really main clarifying point we can see in the future, let's wait a bit. Let's wait till week 3, 4, or 5 in this skirmish series. Let's see if Tfue or Cloaksy or any other FaZe members actually don't get repeat invites or invites at all, and then we can maybe clarify that maybe Epic Games developers just don't like pro players bashing their game in front of thousands or tens of thousands of audience, which does in itself make sense, but of course you shouldn't be restricting pros based off that. But also, in other big news, we still have that series going on. It's gonna be cool to see who actually wins this week's solo event, so you guys can check that out as well. And for anyone who is curious, no, Tfue and Cloaksy were not invited to last week's solo skirmish. It was actually their teammates who got to invite their other teammates. So it was actually HD as well as Kitty Plays who did receive invites to the duos event, and they actually coincidentally invited both Cloaksy and Tfue to the event, which again didn't go well, but hopefully this week will go better. Well, this whole FaZe controversy might be a bit over exaggerated. Leave a comment down below. What do you guys think? But also, yeah, just drama in itself. And also in very big League of Legends news, guys, of course we do have LCS and LCK matches going on this weekend. We're going to see some roster change news, which we'll talk about at the back half of today's segment. But also in big news for Riot Games, though, they will be coming out of just over a year-long settlement with the mobile app known as Legends. Now, this mobile app was a pretty obvious knockoff of League of Legends, as you guys can see by many of their characters, not only physical attributes, but as well as in-game attributes, one of them being Emily, their in-game character, who is just very similar to Annie, as well as Emily also dropped down a mechanical creature, much like Annie drops down Tivers, and alongside that they also have an in-game character known as Karna, who looks an awful lot like Lux. There was a bunch of other characters and abilities which were very, very based around League of Legends itself, and apparently as well, because the case went on so long, the original settlement was only going to be for just over $380,000, but now, as clarified by several sources as well, the articles will be linked down below. Apparently, the new settlement for Riot Games will be equivalent to 19.4 million Chinese yen, equivalent to right around $2.9 million, so Riot Games coming out on top as well. But again, it was pretty obvious this is eventually going to go in their favor. The game was a blatant ripoff, but the game itself, most importantly, will continue to actually be played on mobile. Now, on top of that as well, we do say some very small changes out there to Cloud9, continuing to make changes, and it will be this week. Apparently, Smoothie and Sven sent down to the Academy roster, and we'll get to see, apparently, according to rumors out there, not clarified yet, but of course by tonight and tomorrow we'll know. Apparently, it will be Academy member Blaber taking the main roster in place of Sven Skaren. So, going to be very cool to see how he does over the past 2 to 3 weeks, looking very dominant in Academy play. But again, Cloud9 seemingly trying anything to, of course, win the necessary matches to make playoffs. As of right now, looking like they're going to need at least 7 or 8 wins to actually make playoffs. And with Sneaky being brought back last week, them going 1-1 in the split, they definitely need to go undefeated for a few weekends straight here. But again, it's really nice to see Academy members get their chance, but it's also kind of sad to see other players sent down. But either way, Cloud9 trying lots of things. Will it work? I don't know. And out of all the esports we covered this week, Overwatch seeing the biggest update over the past few days. Of course, we do have, though, in biggest upsets. Now, I don't think a lot of viewers are actually really care about the Overwatch League themselves, but playoffs, of course, are going on. We do have this weekend the grand finals, which will be the Philadelphia Fusion versus the London Spitfire. And huge debate as well because, of course, the sandbagging incident for New York Excelsior going on all year long, and apparently that did actually bite them in the butt. Philadelphia Fusion looking amazing and actually 3-0 sweeping the #1 team going into this. That was the New York Excelsior, as well as London Spitfire taking down the LA Valiant in a 3-1 series, themselves looking very dominant. Going into it, I really have no idea who's going to win the grand finals. What do you guys think? Leave that down below. But on top of that, we saw some huge hero changes this week, and let's go over each and every hero and what their changes were, as we did see some significant changes to a few heroes out there. So first up, big announcements for several heroes out there. We now have channeled and transformation ultimates now restore ammunition after their completion. So for heroes like Junkrat, Pharah, Roadhog, Zenyatta, Genji, and Winston, they'll now pretty much have full abilities ready once their ultimates do finish. Now on top of that, some big changes to some of your favorite characters out there like Hanzo. His lunge cooldown has now been moved from 4 seconds to 5 seconds. So apparently, according to devs out there, easier to catch him. We'll see if it actually does work. Now Sombra as well also had a big headshot glitch going on the past few weeks. Her headshot radius has now finally been reduced to what it actually should be. Widowmaker on top of that, her grappling hook cooldown is now 10 seconds instead of 8. So some big nerfs coming apparently for Hanzo and Widowmaker, although we'll see how really big of nerfs they really are. As well as Zarya, her drain rate reduced from 2 per second to actually 1.6. So she can shoot for longer periods of time, with gravitation surge radius also being reduced by 2 meters. So kind of a balance update there. Bit of a nerf, bit of a buff. And Ana's nano boost will now additionally heal a target for 300 HP instantly. So kind of a small update there. And Brigitte also seen a shield bash cooldown increase to 7 seconds. Now as devs continue to struggle with nerfing here, we're going to see how many updates she will possibly have with every single patch update. She seems like one of the difficult heroes, at least probably one of the toughest so far to actually find a balance for in terms of play rate, as well as her ridiculous win rate so far. We'll see if this helps it whatsoever. And we also had Lucio see some updates, some substantial ones as well, with sound barrier effect no longer with 500 shields, but actually 750. So a 50% increase in shields for that effect. And on top of that, his crossfade aura radius has been increased from 10 meters to 12. So some big updates for Lucio. On top of that, Mercy also continue to see confusing balance. Not really sure what she's going to be doing in terms of play rate for the next few weeks, as Blizzard tries to have several changes for her. And this week, her primary healing beam has now been reduced to 50 HP from 60 HP. And a hero that I think is largely really underrated for their healing source, that's actually Moira, seeing the last of the hero updates this week. Her base regen increased by 20%, and still a hero in my eyes if you take away, of course, Mercy's mid-fight res, a hero that probably should be picked more. And again, with Mercy's ridiculous pick rate so far, I think maybe devs trying to balance that out and actually see other healers be picked for once. And very last in today's esports news, we do have Rocket League's 3rd annual birthday event going down last night. So for all of you guys who were actually able to attend the event, it was only a one-day event, but it was also free to attend. And the first 1,000 guests also got some additional amenities there, as well as some free popcorn. There was WWE stars there. A really cool event looking, as well as on screen for all of you. Yes, those are real life-size cars and skin packs coming to the game if they have not been released yet. I think the Batmobile has actually been released coincidentally, but other skins yet to be released as well. And yes, those are real-life people actually driving real-life Rocket League cars. It was very cool to see an event really doing quite well. It's really just cool to see those kind of things actually put into real life. And again, not many other esports are actually able to do that, and seeing real life Rocket League cars is just a pretty exciting thing. That's going to do it though for this week's episode, the final episode, this Friday episode of the Esports News Show. We hope you guys all enjoy, and thank you all for watching the show this week. If you guys want to leave a comment down below, what did we miss this week? What can we do better? And we'll see you all back here Monday with a brand new episode. As always, we hope you guys all enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you then.